how humans accidentally started a galactic trade war by introducing customer service. Picture this. You're running the most successful business empire in galactic history. For 3,000 years, your people have controlled every major trade route, every shipping lane, every commercial transaction across hundreds of star systems. Your business model is simple, efficient, and brutally effective. Take payment, deliver goods. End of transaction. No questions, no complaints, no refund. Then one day, a species you've barely heard of, humans, shows up with their primitive ships and laughably outdated technology. They seem harmless enough. What could possibly go wrong? Well, as it turns out, these humans brought something with them that would topple your 3,000-year empire in less than 6 months. Something so alien, so incomprehensible to your way of thinking that your computers couldn't even translate it properly. They called it customer service, and that simple concept, treating customers like they actually mattered, accidentally triggered the largest trade war in galactic history. Welcome, fellow space enthusiasts, to another deep dive into the fascinating world of humanity's impact on galactic civilization. I'm your narrator for today's journey, and we're about to explore one of the most catastrophic misunderstandings in interstellar history. Now, if you're listening to this while commuting to work, walking the dog, or just trying to unwind after a long day, you're in for a treat. This isn't just another sci-fi story. It's a tale about how the most mundane human behavior can become revolutionary when viewed through alien eyes. The story we're diving into today perfectly captures something we often take for granted: our obsession with customer satisfaction. You know that feeling when a store clerk goes out of their way to help you find exactly what you need? Or when a company actually follows through on their warranty? We consider this normal, expected even. But imagine a galaxy where that concept simply doesn't exist, where commerce is purely transactional, cold, and efficient, where the idea of caring about a customer's experience after they've paid is not just foreign, it's incomprehensible. That's the galaxy humans stumbled into. And what happened next changed everything. So settle in, because this is the story of how humanity's simple desire to be helpful accidentally brought an empire to its knees and revolutionized galactic commerce forever. To understand how revolutionary human customer service was, we need to first understand the Zephyrian Trade Council and their iron grip on galactic commerce. For over 3 millennia, the Zephyrians had perfected what they considered the ultimate business model. Picture beings that look like living crystals, beautiful, cold, and utterly practical. They had reduced all commercial interaction to its most basic elements: identify need, quote price, receive payment, deliver goods, transaction complete. It was elegant in its simplicity. No haggling meant no wasted time. No returns meant no inventory complications. No customer complaints meant no need for support staff. The system was so efficient that it had become the standard across hundreds of worlds. Trade Station Omega 7 was the crown jewel of this system, a massive orbital platform where deals worth billions of credits were struck daily. The station operated like clockwork. Customers arrived, stated their needs, paid the listed price, received their goods, and left. Any deviation from this protocol was considered a malfunction in the system. Station Commander Vaxstar had overseen this perfect machine for 47 years. His 4 eyes could track dozens of transactions simultaneously, ensuring everything ran with mechanical precision. In all his years of service, he had never encountered a single situation that couldn't be resolved by referring to the standard protocols. That was about to change. The first sign of trouble came on a Tuesday, though of course, the Zephyrians didn't call it Tuesday. They had a much more efficient numbering system for their days. But for our human understanding, let's call it Tuesday, because that's when Captain Sarah Chen of the merchant vessel Prosperity docked at Omega 7 and, unknowingly, began the process of dismantling a 3,000-year-old empire. Chen was what we might call a typical human trader, if there is such a thing. She'd grown up in the merchant marine, learned business from her parents who ran a small import complex on Mars. To her, trading wasn't just about moving goods from point A to point B. It was about building relationships, understanding needs, and yes, making sure customers were happy with their purchases. The Zephyrians had no idea what was about to hit them. Commander Vextra was reviewing the morning's transaction logs when his attention was drawn to an anomaly in the security feeds. A Rigelian customer, a species known for their methodical approach to business, was standing at the human trading post, clearly agitated. Now, in the Zephyrian system, an agitated customer was simple to handle. You directed them to the exit. If they persisted, you called security. The transaction was complete. Their emotional state was irrelevant. But Captain Chen was doing something unprecedented. She was listening. Vextar watched in growing bewilderment as the human actually engaged with the customer's complaint. The Rigelian had purchased plasma coils that were defective, a common enough occurrence. In the Zephyrian system, this would be met with a standard response. Transaction complete, no refunds, please exit the premises. Instead, Chen said something that made Vextra's crystalline form flicker with confusion. "I'm so sorry these didn't meet your expectations. Let me see what I can do to make this right." Make it right? The concept was so alien that the station's translation computers struggled to process it. What did right mean in a commercial context? The transaction had been completed according to all established protocols. Payment had been received, goods delivered. By every measure that mattered, everything was already right. But Chen wasn't finished. She did something that violated every principle of efficient commerce. She refunded the Rigelian's credits. Not only that, she gave him a discount on replacement coils from her own inventory. Then, and this is where Vextar knew something was fundamentally wrong with the universe, she asked if there was anything else she could do to improve his experience. The Rigelian left the station in a state of shock. He clutched his refund, a concept so foreign that he had to explain it to 3 different beings before anyone believed him, and muttered about impossible kindness in 17 different languages. Within hours, word had spread throughout the station. The humans were offering something called customer service, a term so alien that it broke 2 translation matrices and caused a minor diplomatic incident when a Centaurian delegate thought it was some kind of military threat. But this was just the beginning. What happened next would shake the very foundations of galactic commerce and leave the Zephyrian Trade Council scrambling to understand how their perfect system was suddenly By the end of the week, Commander Vextar was facing something no Zephyrian had ever encountered in 3 millennia of commerce: customers with expectation. The Rigelian, who'd received Chen's unprecedented treatment, couldn't stop talking about it. He told his business partners, who told their suppliers, who told their customers. The story spread through the galactic communication networks like a virus. If viruses could carry hope instead of disease. Within days, beings from across the sector were arriving at Omega-7 with a dangerous new idea: that merchants should actually care about their satisfaction beyond the point of sale. The established Zephyrian vendors were completely unprepared for this development. Merchant Clixoth, who had operated the same stall for 40 years with mechanical efficiency, suddenly found himself facing a Centaurian trader demanding to know why his quantum processors had failed after only 2 cycles of use. "Transaction complete," Clixoth replied, as he had thousands of times before. "No refunds." "But the humans would fix this," the Centaurian protested. "They have something called a warranty." "A warranty." Clixoth's tentacles writhed in confusion as he tried to process this concept. The idea that a merchant would guarantee their goods beyond the point of sale was so revolutionary that it might as well have been magic. Meanwhile, Chen's small trading post had become the most popular destination on the station. She'd introduced other concepts that seemed to defy the basic laws of commerce: product demonstrations, satisfaction guarantees, and something called customer feedback. She actually asked customers what they thought about their purchases. And then, here's the truly revolutionary part, she used their responses to improve her service. The other merchants watched in growing alarm as their customer base dwindled. Beings who had shopped at the same Zephyrian stalls for decades were now flocking to the human section, drawn by promises of quality assurance and after-sales support. Commander Vexstar filed his first report to the Zephyrian Trade Council with trembling claws. The humans are disrupting established commerce protocols. They appear to be operating under the delusion that customer satisfaction matters beyond the point of sale. The response from the Council was swift and dismissive. Impossible. No species is that inefficient. Monitor the situation and report any actual threats to trade stability. The Council's dismissal would prove to be their first and most costly mistake. 3 months later, the Zephyrian Trade Council faced something they'd never encountered in 3 millennia of commerce: actual competition. What started as one human merchant being polite had evolved into something the galaxy had never seen: a customer service revolution. Chen's success had attracted other human traders, each bringing their own Earth-based business practices that seemed to defy the fundamental laws of commerce. The humans introduced concepts that made Zephyrian economists question their understanding of basic economics. Money-back guarantees. If you weren't satisfied, you got your credits back, no questions asked. The Zephyrians couldn't understand how this was profitable. Customer loyalty programs. The more you bought, the better deals you received. This seemed to reward inefficiency in the customer base. 24/7 support. Humans were available to help customers at any hour, in any time zone. The overhead costs alone should have bankrupted them. Free shipping. They absorbed transportation costs to make purchasing easier. This violated every principle of cost allocation. Product warranties. They stood behind their goods for extended periods. The liability implications were staggering. But the most revolutionary concept was something humans called going the extra mile. When an Andromedan freighter captain mentioned he needed rare isotopes for his ship's reactor, human trader Marcus Webb didn't just sell him the isotopes. He researched the captain's route and suggested more efficient fuel mixtures that would save him money in the long run. The captain was so impressed that he recommended Webb to his entire fleet. Within weeks, Webb had secured exclusive contracts with the Andromedan Shipping Consortium, contracts that had belonged to Zephyrian merchants for over 2 centuries. This was when the Zephyrian Trade Council realized they had a problem. Their quarterly profits had dropped by 23%, the first decline in recorded history. Emergency sessions were called, analysts were consulted, economic models were rebuilt from the ground up. The conclusion was unanimous. The humans were somehow cheating. No species can sustain such inefficient practices, declared Council Chairman Zixera, his crystalline form flickering with agitation. They must be operating at a loss to undercut our prices. But the humans weren't operating at a loss. They were thriving. Their customer service approach had created something the galaxy had never seen: customer loyalty. Beings weren't just buying from humans once. They were becoming repeat customers, referring friends. The Zephyrians tried to adapt, but their attempts were clumsy and transparent. They offered satisfaction protocols that were just scripted responses delivered with all the warmth of a malfunctioning computer. They created customer care units, staffed by beings who had no idea what caring actually meant. The human success was about to trigger something far more dangerous than economic competition. It was about to expose the fundamental weakness of the entire Zephyrian system. The moment that changed everything came when a human customer service representative did something that violated every principle of galactic commerce. She admitted a mistake. The incident occurred on Trade Station Beta 9, where human merchant Lisa Park was dealing with a vegan diplomat who had purchased a faulty translation device. The device had malfunctioned during crucial negotiations, nearly causing a diplomatic incident between two. Any Zephyrian merchant would have cited the no returns policy and directed the customer to file a complaint with the manufacturer, a process that typically took several years and rarely resulted in satisfaction. Park did something different. She immediately took responsibility. "I'm so sorry," she said, her genuine distress evident even through the universal translator. "This is completely unacceptable. Not only will I refund your purchase, but I'll personally ensure you receive a premium replacement unit at no charge. And I'll cover any costs incurred due to the diplomatic complications." The vegan diplomat was stunned. In 3 centuries of galactic trade, no merchant had ever taken personal responsibility for a product failure, let alone offered compensation for consequential damages. But Park wasn't finished. She contacted the manufacturer, demanded an explanation for the defective unit, and when their response was unsatisfactory, she terminated her relationship with them entirely. She then sent a detailed report to all her customers, warning them about the potential issues and offering free inspections of any similar devices they'd purchased. The story spread like wildfire through diplomatic channels. Within days, every major government in the sector knew about the human who had sacrificed profit to protect her customers' interests. The Zephyrian Trade Council watched in horror as their carefully constructed system began to collapse. Customers weren't just demanding better service, they were demanding accountability. They wanted to know why Zephyrian merchants had been selling them defective goods for centuries without warning. They wanted explanations for the hidden fees, the non-existent warranties, and the complete lack of recourse when things went wrong. For the first time in 3 millennia, the Zephyrian Trade Council faced organized customer resistance. Boycotts were organized, alternative suppliers were sought, and at the center of it all were the humans, offering something the galaxy had forgotten was possible: honest, caring service. The Zephyrian Trade Council's response to losing customers was exactly what you'd expect from a monopoly that had never faced real competition. They tried to eliminate the competition entirely. The declaration came during an emergency session of the Galactic Commerce Authority. Council Chairman Zephyrian stood before representatives from 1,000 worlds and made an announcement that would echo through history. The human practice of so-called customer service represents an unfair trade advantage that undermines the stability of galactic commerce. Effective immediately, all human merchants are banned from Zephyrian-controlled trade stations and shipping lanes. The humans' response was swift and devastating. Instead of backing down, they did something the Zephrils never expected. They organized their customers. Captain Chen, now the unofficial spokesperson for human merchants, addressed the Galactic Commerce Authority with a simple message that would be remembered for generations. "We're not trying to destroy anyone's business. We're just trying to treat our customers the way we'd want to be treated. If that's unfair competition, then maybe the problem isn't with us." The speech was broadcast across the galaxy, and the reaction was immediate. Worlds that had been quietly suffering under Zephyrian trade practices for centuries suddenly had a voice. The Andromedan Shipping Consortium announced they would only use human-friendly trade routes. The Rigelian Manufacturing Guild declared their support for customer-friendly commerce. Even the notoriously neutral Centaurian Federation route. Even the notoriously neutral Centaurian Federation issue a